This is the story the papers didn't think you'd want to read. This is the story you didn't ask for but are being told anyway. This is the Eric Howell story. Beneath the...
Two of my best friends are brothers by the name of Riley. Jay and John Riley, Glen Ellen boys. John was a bit older. He was down at Southern Illinois University, and he was a great guitar player. He was sort of like the older brother I never had.
Holding on to a dream in a dark and dirty town.
You know, we all sort of looked up to John. He knew my situation. He said, hey, you know, why don't you come down to Carbondale? We'll get in a band together and we'll get something started here. So at this point, I'm like 20 years old. I moved down to Carbondale. First gig, we're setting up our gear and setting up amps, and the sound guy goes, stay tuned next, we got a brand new band here in Carbondale called The Reform. The bar's probably got like 150 people in it. There's like about 40 to 50 of them went, whoa! And John just looks at me like, what? A bunch of them had gotten into The Reform here in Glen Ellen, went down to Carbondale to begin going to school down there as college freshmen, and saw it in the paper Wednesday night at Gadsby's, The Reform. They didn't know that it was like a new version of the band or whatever. They didn't care. And we loved it because it was the first gig, and then you had all these people there. It was a really valuable lesson getting your music out there before the internet. You know, again, cassette tapes and people just listening.
You know, 3 tapes, everybody. And so 2 weeks later, when you get your next gig, everybody knew the songs.
Thank you. Good to see you here, lad. What's your reaction so far?
My reaction is it just keeps getting louder, doesn't it?
A number of musicians in Carbondale had heard Eric's recordings from Chicago before he ever came there, so we were kind of excited to meet this pop genius guy. Great catchy stuff, jangly, fun music that we you know, were identifying with in that town at that time.
I'm thinking maybe it was around '89 when I first got together with Eric. See, I went there to play music, and he as well. Neither one of us went to school down there. But Carbondale was really a great experience to meet new people and get turned on to all kinds of different music.
I fell for you, and I fell for you, and I fall for you now.
Two, maybe 3 nights a week on the Strip, playing different clubs without repeating a song, and it was all original music.
You need to have somebody who's got the balls to say, I'm just going to do my stuff. My stuff is just as good as the covers that I'm doing.
And that was amazing. I mean, nobody was doing that. Even the other original groups at the time, you know, couldn't get away with, they didn't have that big a repertoire.
Get off your big red ladder, put out that wagon fire. Get off your big red ladder, put out that wagon fire. Get off your big red ladder, put out that wagon fire. Get off your big red ladder, put out that wagon fire.
Mike Wagner, bass.
Mike and I, the bass player who I was playing with at the time, Mike Wagner, joined up with Eric and John Riley. Oh, plenty of college parties.
We would get into these things like movie fantasies and just play them out without, in total innocence, without any inkling that it could lead to, you know, prison time or that people would be really upset about what we were doing.
Probably some very close calls, but no arrests that I remember.
Halloween. They fucked themselves. Wow.
Came to realize that we were in similar situations, as the house he was living in was condemned, and I was on tour so much that my place was, well, they foreclosed on the mortgage, and we both found ourselves living in the recording studio.
It used to be a restaurant, and then they converted it into a rehearsal studio. At one point, the realtors came in to sell the building. They were looking at selling the restaurant. And Sharp and I fastened like a dorm-like size room out of the girls' bathroom. With like bunk beds, a cat, space heater, toaster, record albums, the whole bit. And all of a sudden, one morning, the realtors came in. We could hear the realtors like, and this was a rehearsal space. I guess the local bands come in and rehearse, but this will all be gone. I'm hearing the realtor keys jangling, like, and so we've got several rooms in here. This was a washroom, and I'm sure it'll make a fine office. She's got the key, and she's putting it in the lock, and the door. I'm watching from our side. We're like in sleeping bags with a cat. Meow. We're like, get it. And she's got the key in the lock, and we're just watching the lock going. We're just below it, like, oh, somebody must have changed the locks on here. I'll have to get a locksmith to look at that. Anyway, if you look at these other rooms, I didn't know this, but Mike had created a lock on the inside of our door, that only we could open and close from our end. See these two scraggly, skeletal musicians and a cat hiding. Don't shoot. That would have been a scene.
Living on coffee, carrots, and toast. We were playing decent gigs, getting radio play, and people were starting to know us. But we just couldn't keep it going. We just all seemed to have different agendas. Mikey got pretty fed up towards the end. At our last gig, on stage, I was coming at him, trying to say, hey, look, people paid $5 for this show. We gotta give them everything they paid for and more. And we're the Reform. And I was trying to rock and get him all excited, and he just left the stage in the middle of the gig. And we had to finish the gig without him. Well, after a couple of years of starvation, another mindset starts to creep in. I remember thinking, God, I don't think this is going to happen for us. It's not going to happen for me. We aren't going to be the next big band like R.E.M. or U2 or even the Replacements, who we loved. Not in this town. And I know it sounds very lofty nowadays to suggest that we could have been as big as U2 or as big as R.E.M. or even the Replacements. But, remember, in the 80s, those bands, they were leading the charge in stylistically and idealistically. I think anyone that saw the Reform when we were developing and were part of that scene would tell you we could have kept those bands good company. Certainly that's what we wanted. But I didn't have any money. I was working at a Dairy Queen, making $3.35 an hour. $3.35 an hour. I thought about stowing away on the Amtrak train that would take me back up to Chicago. It started to sink in, like, holy shit, what am I gonna do? I'm getting
nowhere. You read about other people in the same situation and they're putting guns to their head.
It just all came from frustration, wanting to be in a different space and feeling trapped and stuck. Why is the timing not right, or whatever.
I look around me and I think when you get this many people together in one area, something fucking weird is bound to happen.
I went down there to form the band and get the deal. There was no other agenda. When the reality started sinking in that I had nothing else, no place to go, had no backup plan, everything closed in like quicksand. And everybody seemed to be standing around laughing all the time, getting ready to graduate and getting ready to start their lives. I felt like mine was coming to a very undesirable end, and I had a breakdown.
Fucking assholes, shut up! Whoa! Yeah!
That was the best Howell show I've ever seen.
I'm glad we got this on tape.
Oh yeah.
Eric, man.
You know what? Playing music can be really frustrating sometimes when you're with people who are just like, you know, glaring at you.
It must have been an interesting dynamic, sort of a country mouse, city mouse kind of dynamic, I guess.
Oh man, sometimes it was hell. That's honest.
And probably a lot of balance there that maybe got thrown out of whack when Riley left.